Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 66, a very special episode on my modded Factorio playthrough. Special because it's the last episode that won't have any game audio. Finally. But one more, we gotta get through it. On this one, we're going to test our ore washing setup and also figure out how to make a blueprint for the ore crushers as well. Enjoy. Okay, I made a save that we can revert to if this is all good, because we're going to produce a lot of random things with it. But to test this, we're going to need to get some water up here, and we don't need to worry about this being pretty or anything, because this is just for the purposes of testing. So the water's hooked up. And there they go. They are working on filling up this purified water. Okay, we're going to need to have lots of different containers to dump all of these resources. And let's just put a strong box right there. That'll be the dump for all of the geodes. And let's have another one here as the dump for all of the finished chunks. Then let's have a strong box here just to suck up all of the sulfur or anything else that would be produced. And finally, we actually need to supply the setup with some crushed sapphirite. And that is why I saved, because we're going to need to grab a whole bunch of it. The more the better. So let's pick up these machines. This is the great thing about having the save files. I don't care how much it messes things up. Let's let that run for a minute or so we have a nice buffer to use. There we go. It should fire up, so let's see if there are any problems. So a lot's going to happen in a very short period of time. It seems good so far, but how quickly are we going to run out of this stuff? Oh, it's still going. Just want to see green. Everything needs to be green. Problem is it's going to take a while for the belts to all balance out. I mean, it sure seems like it's working. It's just the sapphirite isn't making it to the bottom of this. Okay, something clogged up. Sulfuric wastewater clogged. I'm gonna clear this out, since that side does work. So sulfuric was not processing? Ah, yes, because we need somewhere to put the mineralized water. Let's just put it in a big tank. Well, and all the resources have made it to the bottom here, so we can test it in full. And there we go. Is this all green? Come on, turn green. There we go. Look at that. Amazingly, it worked the first time. The speed seems pretty good. It's not going to be completely full belts everywhere until it's been running a while. And it's in the wild. But right now it seems to be going pretty good. And these are all kind of placeholders for the positions of the belts. They could really go anywhere. But it seems like it's running pretty well. There is the massive amount of sulfur that we're producing. Another thing we might have to do is we might have sulfur overload. We're producing too much of it. And if that becomes the case, then we're going to have to add more clarifiers to this to get rid of the sulfuric wastewater, because we otherwise wouldn't be able to produce it. I wonder how much that would be with clarifiers. So 750 sulfuric waste water. That's actually a lot of clarifiers. I kind of want to build that into this, just in case we have sulfur overload. Let's add a recipe. Sulfuric wastewater. So we need about 5 of them. Okay, well the setup works. Let's load the other save. Back before we tore the factory apart. So we need 5 more clarifiers, and they use a ton of pipes. 1, 2, 3. Actually, let's rotate them to be like this. And we need to get sulfuric wastewater in there. Probably the easiest way would be to swing it up here. And then let's have an overflow valve. Although having a nice inline tank would be cool. Just as more buffer. Just works better that way. There we go. I don't know if it would make a difference. But let's put the tank in line, like right there. So the tank will absorb buffer up until about 80%. And the reason why it would get that full is because we were completely filled up on sulfur, where the sulfur was completely filling up this belt and it couldn't make it any further. Although for that to work properly, we'll actually need a unique belt for every output. So we're going to have to move this up 1 square. Oh, actually there are 3 different things we might get. Fluorite, salt, or sodium nitrate. So, Gotta pick this up again. Can probably clean up the belts a little bit here. Just unnecessary belt. And I think that's good. That is the whole setup. With some placeholder belts and whatnot, but probably can pick up the placeholder belts, at least some of them, to make the blueprint cheaper. Let's leave the blueprint here for now in case we want to look at it or change it. But we do have an idea of how many machines we're going to need. It basically went according to plan, where we have our 40 flotation cells and then the 7 hydro plants. But the thing that's new is that we also need to have a bunch of clarifiers. But we're making those by handcrafting them, so we'll just have to make them later. I don't know if I want to put clarifiers on the bus here. Okay, so we made 40 flotation cells, and we need to do this 5 more times for the other ores. So that means we need 200 more flotation cells. So let's set this to 200. And we need 7 hydro plants times 5. So we need 35 more hydro plants. And that much is set up. So the other aspect of this that we need to do, the simpler aspect, is that we need to do the ore crushing, which will be 1 step above here. So as far as where all the belts are going to go, well, we're going to have the bypass belt on the left here. It's going to have to jump across this. And we're squeezing in here. So we might have to move something. But anyway, that is the one belt of the crushed bypass. And then the belt that we do want to use is right here. So those are our 2 belts. They need to be 2 belts of crushed ore. Luckily, the crushers are much faster. So we only need 15 of them. So this is our size limit. So let's see what we can build and if it fits in there. There's no reason to make it obnoxiously wide just because we can. But let's do it based on the belts. So 15 divided by 5 is 3, which is a convenient ratio here. So let's try that. So you can see how very compacted all of this is going to be in comparison. So there's really no concern about making it super small. Well, if that's the case, I kind of just want to do one long line of them like this. Well, let's do 16. It's one too many, but we kind of need to have an even number on each side. Set those up to crushed sapphirite. There's our 8. And one fast inserter for each is good. Let's do a yellow belt there, red belt there. That'll make sense in a bit. But we have an input on each side. Although those don't need to be long-handed or anything like that. We need some filter inserters. And that'll be the crushed sapphirite. And the output, which is going to be the stone. And give it power and get rid of all the flashing. Looking good. Let's copy it. And flip it, so the reason why this red belt is in the middle here is because we have 2 sets of machines pulling off of them, but only a yellow belt on the side because there's only the 1 set. Let's see, looks like I made it 1 machine too many. There we go. That certainly looks like it'll fit within that, so I don't need to measure it or anything. Okay, and we have our 2 outputs. Which are the crushed sapphirite. And these 2 will combine into a single red belt, but might be able to make it simpler. Something like that, but probably want to have some spaces in here. Then we're going to have a total of 6 of these belts of crushed stone, assuming it's running at full power. Probably not, but so these belts would swing around and go here and skip over these ones. Now, I'm going to keep these buildings separated and we'll build them piece by piece when we decide where we're actually going to put it, because we may decide we want to move some of these machines' positions. But we just want to get the general gist of its size and does it work. So, like before, we need to test this and make sure it's good to go. Let's get a strongbox in there. And 2 fast loaders. And we'll need another one, which we can just kind of place over here somewhere to absorb all the stone. And that should be good. So let's go grab a bunch of sapphirite. Okay, when we throw all this in here, it should fire up and work. And it should be quite fast. Now, it's not going to be all quite green, because we needed 15 machines and we have 16. So there's going to be some flickering. I mean, seems pretty good to me. The belts aren't completely 100% compressed, but that's not that big a concern. Close enough is good enough for me. So that worked. And it required 16 ore crushers. So we're going to need 80 more. So we'll set this to 80. And that's basically it. We don't really want to worry about placing all of the ore sorters until we have these in place and we have an idea of how big it all is. Because we still have to do the crushing of the ferrous and cupric mixtures and then turning them into powder, which does take up quite a bit of space as well. But this is going to go on the end of all of these. So it's better to get all this stuff placed first, and then we can figure out what to do about the other bits. One step at a time. Okay, we need to make the blueprints for all of these. Good enough. We'll fill in the gaps when we place it. And same here, where we will fix it up once it actually gets placed. And now this is the first time we have a fairly large setup, so we have an idea of the total number of resources we're going to need. In short, a lot. Now, some of these things are easy enough just to go back and get copies of, but other things less so. Like, for example, underground pipes. 215 underground pipes, just for that alone. So let's increase underground pipes to 1,000. We should be mostly good with the current store of these things here, but let's increase it anyway. Let's say 400. Let's see, as far as belts are concerned, well, we're going to need a lot. So let's increase the yellow belts to 2,000. And 1,000 for the red ones. Let's do 100 undergrounds for red, and like 500. That's so many for that. Just keep going down the list of the things we need the most of until it doesn't seem like we need to make any more. So filter inserters. Let's do 500. And then regular inserter. Let's do 500. And power poles. Let's do 500. And the things that are less than that look like they're fairly easy to produce. Except for maybe 100 lamps if we're not already making those. As far as these ones, it's just kind of more of the same. So I don't think we need to do anything special there. Well, from here, just need to be patient, let everything get built up, and then we can move these setups. And try to find a good place to put them. Again, yeah, I'm thinking over here somewhere, but one thing we can do is make another blueprint. Let's grab it by here. Basically get rid of all of these entities. But we're going to keep a little bit of it. That's pretty good. So you can see how this is this part of it here. Well, when we're placing these and we want to figure out exactly how far apart to put them, we can kind of line things up and be like, oh, we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. And then we can do click. And it will place this down here. And then we can use that as a guide to figure out, well, will we have enough room to put it in this particular location? And if we think we do, and we're happy with it, we can just kind of line it back up. It looks like right here, but there's some rocks and stuff in the way. And then we'll just go click, 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 and then go down from there. And definitely now that the setup is this big, we're going to want to use the crawler. Oh, we didn't put any lights on here. Definitely got to take care of that. But now that the setup is this big, we're going to be using so many nanobots to build it. And honestly, the crawler might actually be faster. In fact, let's put it to the test. Okay. So to test this, I'm going to put the crawler like right there. And we're going to have the robots clear out Let's say up to here. Okay, so it's 45, basically 00. Let's see how fast the robots can do it. It looks like it's about a minute, because the last stragglers are coming in and they're all charging. That's close enough that we can basically say it was a minute. So let's see, we'll need to clear out the inventory so we don't have any inventory issues. But let's race. Let's see how long it'll take for the nanobots to do the other half. So, a minute is the time to beat. Looks like they're getting pretty close in time. And pretty much about a minute. It looks like the nanobots were slightly faster. But less important than how fast they were is that it doesn't use any resources, which is getting quite expensive when the setups get this big. It's fine and dandy when you're just building a new setup or you're just trying to get the pattern figured out, but once you got all that worked out, better to let the robots handle it. So the other part of this setup we're going to need is the 30 clarifiers. That last slot is open. Pretty sure we unlocked the ability to make batteries for it. We did. Let's make a vehicle battery and throw it in there just to min-max it. And the burner generator has used quite a bit of charcoal already. It does go through it. And that's the end of this episode. Thanks again for sticking with me through all of the lack of game audio. But the game audio will return for the next episode and life will get back to normal. But the factory will continue to grow because of course it will. This is Factorio. I'll see you later.